All right, so now let's talk about data types, the PHP data types. The values that are actually assigned to the PHP variables may be different data types. So this is just including a simple string and numeric types to a more complex data types like arrays and objects, which I think we're going to talk about arrays and objects a little bit later on. Now PHP supports the total of 8 data types. All right, so these are called primitive data types. So I'm just going to summarize right here. So it supports about 8 primitive data types. It supports 8 primitive data types. So what are those? Actually, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to create a new file called data types that we're going to use. So this is data types.php. All right, and of course let's do that. So of course I need to wrap this in a PHP, otherwise it's gonna look kind of unknown. All right, so it supports 8 primitive data types. So the first data type there we can have is integers, and so it can support an integer, and then it can support a float, and then also strings. We know the strings, booleans. Booleans is like true or false. Booleans, which is true or false. Sometimes booleans you can either return 1 or 0. Okay, most of the time it's just true or false. And then also array. Okay, and then what else? Objects. We'll talk about objects and arrays a little bit later on. What else is there? And then we've got a resource, and we also have a null. All right, so the last one is going to be a null. All right, so now the thing is, these data types are used to construct variables. All right, now let's look at integers, for instance. Integer is a whole number. All right, so let's talk about integers. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to make another comment here. So this is integers. Integers are a whole number. All right, these are whole numbers, meaning this can be a negative value, negative value, positive values, 6, 7, whatsoever. All right, because integers actually are specified in a decimal base 10, or a hexadecimal base 16. All right, or maybe sometimes an octal. Okay, so that is an octal base 8 that is prefixed with a 0 notation. Okay, so but optionally they can be preceded by a negative or a positive. All right, so for instance I can have something like let's say x, and I can say 1, 2, 3. So this is what? This is a decimal number, right? Okay, so this is a decimal number. Okay, so I can actually var var dump var dump. So this var dump is a function that prints out information about a variable. Okay, so I want to var dump the variable x. All right, so let's just go quickly look at it. So of course I need to go back to the root folder. So we're talking about data types, and we can see that this is an integer. You see now, this is an integer. All right. So if I were to say, if I will give it a negative value, let's okay, I'm gonna echo a br line here. I'm gonna echo a br line. So let's give it like a maybe a negative value. So I'm gonna say y is negative 555. All right, and let's go ahead and var dump that. So we can say var dump variable y. Okay, so if we look at that, then we can see that it's still an integer, although it's a negative integer. Okay, all right, so you can do the same thing with octal number, hexadecimal number. Okay, now let's talk about strings. Let's quickly talk about strings. So what are strings? Strings is are sequential or sequences of characters where every character is the same as a byte. All right, and then strings can hold letters. All right, so these are sequences of characters. Oh, my spelling is out of the charts. All right, so yeah, so it's a sequences of characters where each character is actually the same as a byte, right? And then it can hold letters. String can hold letters, can hold numbers, and special characters, and they can be as large as up to 2 gigabyte. Okay. So the simplest way to specify a string is to enclose it in a single quote. However, you can also use double quotes. All right. I normally prefer single quotes because to me they are much cleaner than double quotes. I don't know, but that's just my own sort of this is my own sort of way. All right, this is my own preference basically. All right, so let me see. So now I can okay, let me have greet. So I can have a variable called greet, and I can just say here, hello everyone. Hello everyone. I actually need to echo some sort of echo an HR line there. All right, so now let's go ahead and sort of echo that. So we can echo greet. Okay, so let's have a look. Now what do we have? And we can actually see that we've got that hello everyone here. Okay, so we can also var dump greet. Oops. All right, so now let's have a look. It says hello everyone. Actually, yeah, I will need to comment this one out so that we can see that one. Well, it doesn't really tell me, it just keeps on printing the same thing. Oh no, man, I need to refresh, isn't it? I forgot to refresh. And then, so it tells us that there's a string with a count of 14, is it? Because if you count, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 with a space, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So it also gives you the length. All right. So we can always let's say okay, but that one I think we will do it later on. But basically we can say let's create a message again. Message, let's create a variable called message, and then here we can say please make sure to wash them dishes, all right, dishes, and I'll see you later. All right, you see here we've got some sort of an error that's happening. It's because of this. So there's what we call a string escape. So you can escape this by putting a backslash like this. All right, so you just put a backslash because you're sort of escaping that apostrophe. All right, so if we var dump, oh, let's actually echo it. So we can echo let's echo message. All right, and if we go back here, we reload, and then we can see that we have hello. Oh, we've got, please make sure that you wash them dishes, and I'll see you later. All right, so basically we have to so what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna just echo a BR line there. So I must just put it here. All right, and then we can now let's count. So we can var dump the message. All right, now let's look at it, and let's refresh. Then we can see now this contains 60 characters. So remember, it includes what? It includes also the white spaces. It also includes the white spaces. All right, now let's talk about the floating point numbers or doubles. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to echo the HR there so that we can separate these things. And now let's talk about what is this, the floating point, floating, or the floats, and of course doubles. So these are actually floating point numbers, right? Floating point numbers. So these are what? These can be a decimal or a fractional numbers. So this can be a decimal or a fractional number. All right. So for example, we can have let me see, you can have a variable a, and we can say a is 1, 254. All right, so if I go in var dump a, the variable a, all right, so let's go ahead and check that one, and of course let's refresh, and then we can see this is a float. The data type is a float. Okay, or we can say let's create another one. Okay, let's echo looking for this, and we can have a variable b, and we can say is 10 dot to maybe e3. Okay, so now let's var dump that. Var dump variable b. All right, so let's have a look. Then we see it's still giving us a float. All right, still a float. All right, now let's talk about Booleans quickly. I think arrays, we can always talk about them on the next video, but let's talk about Booleans. So Booleans are true or false. Okay, so this means true or false, and there is only two possible values. It's either, so true, that means true it's 1, right, and false is 0. So those are the only two possible values. So I can just maybe here something, create a variable here and say has car. Okay, and I'm gonna assign that to true. And if I go back here and say var dump the variable has car, and let's look at that, and then it's just gonna tell me this is a Boolean. Okay, it's just say it's a bool. All right, so we sort of missing what in HR, because I like to separate these things. I'm going to put an HR here. All right. All right. Now, okay. So let's end here for today, and then next time when we meet again, we're going to talk about PHP arrays, and we're going to talk about objects as well, and then null and resources. Okay, so we're going to end